Well, good morning, everybody. This is Patricia and David, Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH286, and today is Monday, the 6th of May. Hope you had a good weekend. Cinco de Mayo yesterday. I didn't actually know what Cinco de Mayo actually was meant to celebrate, but it was evidently Mexico's victory over France. So that was interesting. I didn't know much about that at all. I wonder if those in Texas and the other places that managed to grab some Mexican soil have celebrations to have remember that time. But anyway, that was Cinco de Mayo yesterday, and we had the most brilliant weather weekend I can remember in New Zealand. Saturday, Sunday, even Friday, we drove down to Taupo, and there's just been no wind. And of course, down in the middle of the country, there's been some pretty nippy mornings overnight and things. I don't know that it got down. Did it get down to single digit? It might have done. But what has happened is that all the leaves are just turning magnificent colours. We don't get really the autumn colours up here. It's a bit too mild. But boy, the just brilliant yellows and oranges and reds, a lot of the farms and sort of around the lake have wondrously big oak trees and elms, and poplars are just a brilliant, brilliant yellow colour. And only the faintest of light breezes, I think when the butterfly flapped its wings in Ecuador or wherever, we got a few little leaves coming down. But the colours were absolutely magnificent, and it was just a glorious drive there and back. Well, apart from the traffic, of course. The country is looking really, really lovely. Green grass and the bursts of colour everywhere. Just absolutely magnificent. And David felt as if he was back in New York, or state of New York, because there were piles of brilliant leaves on the ground, and they weren't soggy, of course, because it hasn't been any rain for a while. So it was just a lovely, lovely autumn weekend. And where we stayed, it's sort of 5 miles south of Taupo. There's a walkway actually right through to Taupo and further south, a cycleway and a walkway. So you can walk a long way. We had a good 3-hour walk on, was it Saturday? And just the water was just tranquil, the odd kayaker out fishing or whatever. And it was just a magnificent weekend. Absolutely terrible weekend for duck shooting. Duck shooting started this weekend, and the sky, well, there wasn't, when the foggy cloud cleared in the morning. Of course, the ducks would have been way, way too high for the shooters, but the rest of us enjoyed it immensely because it was just beautiful. Some of you have been heading north or northeast, and it looks like pretty good weather actually for sailing. I see boats reporting on Cruisersat.net. There's Bla Eleanor and Mezzaluna, and we also heard from Mana heading to Minerva. Got you there with about an east-southeast of 15 to 18. Bit of a swell, east-southeast to 2 metres by the look of it, reported, but Mana looks a little bit ahead of Mezzaluna and La Eleanor, but looks like really, really good conditions. And we've got a few other boats reporting in on, where are we? I'm just trying to get to it here, but haven't managed to do it yet. Oh, here we go. Mesa Troy, they're on their way to Vanuatu, Nisham, and they have 20 to 22 knots of easterly. Another boat, Kuperi, reported a bit sort of east-southeast, back to east, I think it was, but that's basically where the wind is. So really good conditions for you all. Fusio is down at 20, or up at 25, I suppose, 176, and they've got 19 knots of easterly. So pretty good conditions at this stage of the game anyway. Quite a few boats are in fact heading to Minerva. So we'll be certainly covering the Minerva Passage, or David will be covering the Minerva Passage at some stage, and looking at your conditions when you are there. It certainly will be warmer water at Minerva than the lake water was at Taupo. Boy, we were walking with my friend's dog, which happens to be a cross between a golden retriever and a poodle, and it just dived into the water all the time with its short, gingery curly hair. Oh gosh, it made me feel chilly just looking at her. Okay, I'm not sure that there is, I presume Rubicon are almost at home, but they won't hear us. Is there anybody wanting to check in? Please call Gulf Harbour Radio. Oh, there was somebody there. I needed to turn the radio up. A male voice. What was it?
Another adventure.
Another adventure. Goodness, was that another adventure? That's a really strong radio. What have you done, Frank? Over.
I don't know, but I'm glad it's got stronger. Would you like my report? Over.
Yes, go ahead.
All right, we are at 18 degrees, 29 minutes south, 168 degrees, 51 minutes east, on a course of 324 degrees through, speed over ground 7 knots, with east-southeast between 22 and 25 knots, speed out of the east 2 meters and maybe a bit more, barometer at 1012. Over.
Yeah, fantastic. Good copy now. So that wind seems to be pretty steady all the way through. People will be pleased to hear that. So another adventure is at 1829 and 16851 east, with east-southeast 22 to 25, and that easterly 2 metre swell 1012. So yeah, you're making pretty good progress
Where
there.
did you go into China?
Yeah, are you going into Tanna or Nisham? Over.
Fascinating.
We were at for a couple of days last night and here was today Echo.
Oh,
Morning on our way to Port Villa. Over.
yeah, my brain's just waking up to things. David, give me a kick here, pushing her feet. So, did you actually stop at Erromango?
I left early this morning to the Port Villa later this afternoon. Over.
Yeah, Roger. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it can be a little bit snotty, easterly 2 metres, so hopefully it just stays a nice and constant 2 metre swell and doesn't get snarly. If you are a fisherman, there's really good fishing between Erromango and Port Vila, but you may not want to bother with that. All right. Oh, good progress being made there. So that's good news and certainly a good radio signal from you this morning. And I'm sure Messatroy will be interested to know that it's fairly constant winds right from where they are up to where you are, good 10 degrees of the same winds. All right. Was there anybody else? Oh, that's Mana. Go ahead. Well, I didn't get much of that, Yago, but never mind. I'm sure others that are in a bit better position could copy you a bit better than me. But yeah, it sounds all going fairly decently. So good morning to you and Marina. Okay, let's have a little bit of news. Well, I mentioned that it was Cinco de Mayo yesterday, and here we've got a brilliant morning. Did I tell you it's 17 degrees here today? Very, very calm, about 2 knots of northeast wind, 1027.1 on the bar and steady. Up in Whangarei, it's 10.9 degrees centigrade at the moment, so not very tropical there. A light northwester there, and I haven't seen anybody come in from Opua, but that's because I haven't got it on. Let's have a look here. Yeah, nothing much there. But just a lot of good mornings from people like North Star and Swoots and Ganesh and so on. So a little bit more news. There was the Kentucky Derby over the weekend and a very big drama because the winning horse was disqualified after it came in for a foul on the track. I'm not talking about the ones that go cluck, cluck, cluck. Evidently, he swerved across several several horses. You can tell it's Monday, can't you? Several horses. There were 19 racing in pretty sloppy conditions. And so the horse that then was put into first place, Country Home, he had 65 to 1 odds. So I bet there were a few very disappointed people with the first horse, but those that had Country Home would have been rather spectacularly reimbursed, I would imagine. Just a reminder for those that are heading away from news that it is Mother's Day coming up, so you might want to, we always sort of forgot about those sorts of dates, but Mother's Day is coming up, so don't forget to send off an email or a phone call or whatever it is that you do traditionally on Mother's Day. A bit of very sad news for cruises, New Zealand cruises in Panama. They sold up everything here in the South Island. They had a 20-metre motorboat, which we call a launch here. We've been having discussions on the different terminology for yachts, because in America, of course, a yacht can be a sailboat or a motorboat, but here we tend to say the motorboat is a launch. Anyway, in Panama, the owner and his family, there was mum and dad and the kids, he heard something on the roof, went out to investigate, and for his efforts was killed with a shotgun. His wife was bashed up by a machete, but managed to lock herself and the kids in the cabin and made an emergency call to New Zealand. In these sorts of situations, the RCC here in New Zealand, that's the people that are right next door to Maritime Radio, they get in touch with their counterparts, Interpol and the various police people around wherever it happens to be. And they did in fact get these guys, but very sad for the people who had only managed to get as far as Panama. So the wife and kids are now okay. She's back out of hospital. This happened in the weekend, so she couldn't have been bashed up too badly. But yeah, not very nice to have happened in Panama. Really well on the Coleman side. It didn't actually say which side it was, but yeah, it would be interesting to know. Try and get a bit more detail about that one. A bit more drama from America actually, and this doesn't even include Mr. Trump. A Boeing 737 took off from Cuba. It was a military plane from the base Guantanamo, I suppose. I don't know where they have their airfield, but anyway, it managed to arrive in Jacksonville in a thunderstorm and did a few bounces on the runway and then went into the swamp. 143 people on board, but they're all okay. The 737 lost the front of its nose and doesn't look very, very well at all, but the 143 people on board are all okay. Actually, talking about America, they are having a Lime scooter problem as well over there. Those of you that have been in New Zealand and tried to walk in places like downtown Auckland know that the Lime scooters in New Zealand are causing a bit of a pain in the neck. Well, in Texas, they're getting so concerned about the number of bad accidents that they're looking at requiring helmets. So there you have it. Dinnerhour, a report from Elisham. Evidently, there are no laundry or showers at the moment because they're all closed because of construction. I guess they're upgrading them or something, but thank you for that report, Elisham. People will just have to jump in the water. And I don't know, Imagine, if you're listening, anybody on Imagine, but if you could remember, please, if you are listening, then you'll probably be interested in weather. Well, we're interested in your weather too. So if you could just put square brackets around the word weather and report your weather along with all your other stuff, that would be really good. Imagine are at 29 South and 179 East. What we do on this radio broadcast is give you as much information as we can so that you can see what's going on around you and ahead of you. So it's always useful if folks can give us their actual report. You can do that in any which way. You can report on YIT or CruiserSatNet, or just send us an email like Mana did this morning. Actually, you didn't actually give us your weather, but anyway, some people will email in and give us their weather, and that is really useful, particularly to look at how accurate the conditions are. But it looks like today they're all fairly stable. So I'm going to pass the microphone to David, and he can tell us what's going on for the week. And we do have your request to look at for those boats that are going to Minerva. I guess a lot of you are fairly new going to Minerva and want to know what the conditions are going to be like for a while. So it sounds like it's going to be quite a fun time at Minerva. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But anyway, he will be covering that over the week. Here's David.
All right, well, good morning. And let's take a look at how the weekend has changed the atmosphere, if you will. As Patricia said, here in New Zealand, it was absolutely gorgeous. Just a beautiful couple of autumn days. But those of you ready to get out of Dodge or Papua or Marsden, we'll actually see northeast winds about 15 knots today. This is the day that many of you have said they wanted to depart, and that's what you pretty much could expect as you clear the harbor and get a bit outside. Now, the synoptic surface chart shows our high that is responsible for the great weekend. It's moving slightly east of New Zealand, centered pretty much east of Timaru. That's about midway up the South Island. So that gives you an idea as to where the center is located. Pretty strong at 1032 millibar 1032. The depression that we predicted east of Australia now has two centers. One is just east of Sydney, and the other one is, I guess the best way to describe it would be northeast of Tasmania. And a very nice squash zone exists between these pair of lows and New Zealand. So that's going to put the squash to any voyage east across the Tasman. We still have a few people that are wanting to come to New Zealand from Tasmania, but this is definitely not the week to do it. It's pretty nasty out there. Our high ridges north toward Fiji, and a very small tropical disturbance has formed over the eastern Solomons, and that's pretty much what we had forecast on Friday. Now, by Wednesday, jumping a few days here, the high that I've been talking about should be east of Cook Strait by then. So you can see it's not only moved east a bit, but it's dropped south just a little bit as well. It's still strong. We're expecting 1030 on Wednesday. So pretty strong high. Now, a depression lies in the Tasman at that time. And the tropical disturbance that we're talking about should be at about this location. I'll give you the coordinates: 17 south, 17 south, and 162 east. Not most, but a good number of the models pretty much are in agreement on that for that time. But the models do differ on the track at that point onward. It looks like it is going to move southwest toward Queensland by about a week from now, but other models actually show it heading for New Caledonia. So we'll have to keep a real close eye on this thing. It's winding up pretty good on the forecast models, so we will certainly pay attention to it. For those of you that have left, we find squally cloud really from New Zealand all the way north to New Caledonia, and also from 30 south and 170 east toward Minerva Reef. So that whole general area of the Southwest Pacific is filled with cloud. And this cloud is basically just cloud that's forming from rising air within the high. There are no real troughs that are involved, just essentially convective cloud. And typically at night you get your terrible little squalls, and just be prepared for those, because looking at imagery, they're really all over. Now, winds Tuesday from New Zealand up to 30 south look to be east to northeast, depending upon what your destination is. And I would say about 20 knots in the mean. That's about the wind strength. Now, this continues through Thursday. But if you get to 25 south by then, the winds are going to shift to become easterlies about 20 knots. And you heard the reports a few minutes ago on yachts that are up that high, and that's about what they're getting. So that's what you would be getting as you continue north. Although the winds will probably be south-southeast if your destination is Fiji or Tonga. And all that has to do with the shape of the high itself, the actual ridge that's heading north, that's pushing itself north, just the shape of it. It depends where you are within that hump, if you will. So by Saturday, New Caledonia and Vanuatu yachts should see east to east-northeast, about 15 to 20, but the Fiji yachts are looking at east-southeast, maybe, well, I would say getting up to 25 knots. On Sunday, we're looking at southeast 20 or so there. This would be about your arrival time for some of you quicker yachts. The Tonga-bound yachts could expect Sunday southeast about 15, maybe 15 to 20 on Sunday. So the big question is, for all those that have waited through the weekend and are planning on departing, do we actually leave today? For the first 3 days, you're going to be looking at northeast winds. That's going to give you, obviously, beating conditions. But if you wind up getting up to 30 south after about 3 days, which is typical, the winds are going to veer to become more easterlies. So that actually is pretty good news if you could stand those first 3 days of northeasterlies. Now, for the New Cal bound yachts that are leaving today, you are probably going to have to contend with a frontal band probably by Saturday or Sunday. And the Vanuatu yachts as well. The winds are going to be backing a bit at that time. Now going to Minerva, again, this is leaving today. That looks okay. Again, you still have those first 3 days of winds that are not so nice in direction, but finally getting up to Minerva, you could expect probably easterly winds, and they'll be a good 20 to 25 knots. Now, if you can't leave today, you may consider delaying, especially given the uncertainty of the tropical low. This is mainly a concern for the New Cal bound yachts, possibly the Vanuatu bound yachts. So if you're in that camp, you may want to think about this. If it were us in Chameleon, we would give this window a miss if that's where our destination is going to be. But as you all know, we don't give advice, so everything is really up to you. But we would sit this one out if we were going to Fiji, or rather if we were going to Vanuatu or New Cal. But it's still not going to be a spectacular trip, mainly because of the beginning, and we don't like to be bounced around. Now let's look briefly at the tropics themselves, where we've got a trough that runs from the Solomons to the Rotuma area, then northern Fiji, and to Tonga. Now within this trough, the area around the eastern Solomons, that's where the tropical disturbance is formed, right on that trough itself. And it's starting out with just one isobar, and then 2 and 3, and then you can see how it starts to wrap up as you look at the different models. Now, another active trough begins at Tuvalu. It runs to Samoa, goes on to Niue, and then off to the Southern Cooks. And those are the two main events up in the tropics that I could see looking at satellite imagery. Now, a brief look at Tonga. Again, on satellite imagery, it shows the broken cloud over the kingdom, so you could expect cloudy periods and scattered showers there. Tonga met as a strong wind warning out and also a damaging swell advisory for Vavau, the Hapais, and Tongatapu, so virtually the main chain. East to southeast winds 15 to 20, rising up 25 to 30, and tomorrow expect 20 to 25 knots. Now over to Fiji, imagery does show cloud over the group as well. There is very heavy convective activity that's moving toward the group, looking at the satellite loop. That's coming in from the northwest, traveling to the southeast. Now Fiji Met has a strong wind advisory for all Fiji waters, southeast 20 to 30 knots, gusting 40, that's a 40 knots at times. Rough conditions for Fiji folks, so hopefully you're hunkered down and a protected location. Now, moving to Vanuatu, for those of you that are there, few of you are there already, it shows a fair amount of cloud, particularly in the northern area. Just east of the group, I'm picking up a disturbance. I'm picking this up on imagery. I can see the cyclonic spin. And the winds there are about 35 knots. Now that is east of the main chain. For the group itself, the winds I would expect to be southeast, give or take on that direction, 20 to maybe even 25 knots from Anisham up to Santo. Tomorrow the winds around Port Vila, easterlies, maybe getting up to 20 knots, maybe not, but not quite fresh winds, but there is wind. From Anisham to Aramango, we're looking at about 15 to 20 out of the southeast. And the Newcastle, it's Lastly here. Imagery does show quite a bit of cloud as well. Winds east to east-southeast about 15 to 20 in the southern lagoon. Tomorrow, east to east-northeast about 15 to 20. And for the loyalties, if anybody is over there, you could expect rain showers. Now, watch out for Wednesday. The wind is back with us on Wednesday. I'm looking at east to east-southeast, 20 knots, gusting 30. So quite a bit of wind activity. And all this is based on the big highs that we've got to the south. So you can see on the fringe of these highs that we do indeed have a lot of wind, and that's exactly what's happening. So that's it for me. Any questions or comments? A few of you have asked about what the weather's going to be like in Minerva next week. Well, that's a little bit far away. We've just started this week. So I would assume that those are coming from yachts that are going to be arriving in Minerva sometime this week and want to stay a few days before they head on. I'm looking at out past 240 hours, which would put it into the next week, if you will. And it does look like it's doable to stay that long and to get to Tonga or even Fiji, if that's your destination. Most of the people are going to Tonga. So we'll keep you informed on that as the days roll on and the models change their mind. So any questions or comments come now. And here's Trish.
Yeah, I just was wondering about how Jeffrey was getting on in Noumea with the repairs to Flying Fish. There's a few on the way repairs. Pilgrims will make David remember our trip into Papaiti. They've got a leak in the exhaust accumulator tank, so he's busy fixing that at the moment. Tell you what, that's one thing you really need to have lots of spares for, the goop and tape and stuff to wrap round exhausts, because it seems to be a common problem. Poor old David had to fix ours when we were hurtling around Tahiti. The boat was really on an angle. Every time he has something to do in the engine room, it's always really, really good sailing conditions, so he has to balance on his nose, but we had that job as well. And I see Whistler are going into South Minerva. They're not very far away. And Matt and Elizabeth on Rubicon are motoring down the coast and getting into Marsden Cove tomorrow. So that's their trip back to New Zealand. Is there anybody with any questions for David? No, doesn't sound like it. So we'll wish you all a really good day out there. It sounds like a fairly stable wind in most directions, and we will be back again tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody, and this frequency is now all yours. Hang on, I better just check the dashboard to see if there's any questions come up there. Oh, I see Citrus Tart is up there. Hello, Michelle. Betty is patient, who knows? And Mark doesn't say when the Kushner will be ready. So, okay, well, I'm off to the bloodsuckers.